He thought it would be easy. He thought the world was made of weak people and even weaker consequences. His name was Ricky Timms, a small-town thug with a big mouth and a cheap gun. 23, broke, and convinced the universe owed him something. He wasn't a mastermind. He wasn't even good at being bad. But he had one rule: shoot first, never ask questions. That rule had gotten him out of a dozen tight spots, until the day it backfired hard. It started with a liquor store on the corner of Maple and Fifth. Ricky walked in, ski mask on, waving a rusty Glock like he was invincible. "Cash in the bag. Nobody move," he'd shouted, voice cracking more than he'd like to admit. The clerk, a nervous man in his 50s, fumbled with the register. And that's when Ricky did the thing that changed everything. He shot him. Didn't even wait. The man fell with a sickening thud, a red stain spreading fast across his shirt. There was no reason. No resistance. Just fear. And Ricky fed on it. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the man he'd just gunned down had a son. A son who wasn't just another grieving relative. No. Officer Jonah Hale wasn't the kind of man to let justice run its course. Not when it was his father bleeding out behind a cash register. Jonah was clean-cut, calm, professional, but under the surface, something broke. Something dark. And when he watched the security footage and saw Ricky's jittery hands, his twitchy eyes, his stupid little smirk as he fled the scene, Jonah didn't call for backup. He didn't file reports. He just disappeared. Ricky was on the run within hours, thinking he was untouchable. He bragged to friends, skipped town, even stopped to buy beer on the way out. It was laughable, until the laughter stopped. The streets got quiet. His phone stopped ringing. People he trusted stopped answering. It was like the world had closed in around him overnight. And then the first message came. A photo. His face, grainy, snapped through the blinds of a motel room. No note. No number. Just proof. Someone was watching. Ricky laughed it off, tried to shrug the chill crawling up his spine. "Cops don't send photos," he muttered. "Cops don't play games." But Jonah wasn't playing. The second message was a little less subtle. Ricky's car, a beat-up Charger, torched. Total loss. No fingerprints. No witnesses. Just a matchbook left on the ground next to the smoking wreck. From the same liquor store. Now Ricky started to panic. He bounced between towns, stole rides, ditched phones. But everywhere he went, the shadow followed. A figure in the rear view. A door creaking in the night. Whispers outside his window. The hunted becoming the hunted. And every time he closed his eyes, he saw that clerk's face, the way it twisted in pain, the disbelief, the slow collapse. The face of a man who never even reached for the alarm. Then came the night Ricky met Jonah. He was hiding out in a rundown cabin, deep in the woods, no signal, no power. Paranoia had turned into full-blown delusion. He was hearing things, seeing things. Until the door creaked open. And Jonah walked in. Calm. Controlled. Gun holstered. Badge left behind. "Do you remember his name?" Jonah asked. Ricky blinked, confused. "Who?" "The man you shot." "My father." Silence. Then laughter, nervous, cracked. "You a cop? You can't touch me. I'm not here as a cop." That's when Ricky knew he was in real danger. Jonah moved like someone with nothing to lose. No badge, no backup, just vengeance. Ricky pulled his gun, but it was gone. Taken while he slept. Jonah stepped closer. "You thought you could just shoot people," he said. "You thought there were no consequences. But you picked the wrong man to make a ghost." And then Jonah did something Ricky didn't expect. He handed him a phone. "Call the police," he said. "Confess. Or I bury you right here." Ricky, sweating, shaking, thought it was a trick. But the phone worked. He could hear the dial tone. Freedom, if he gave it all up. He laughed, bitter and defiant. "You think I'm scared of jail?" "No," Jonah said. "I think you're scared of being forgotten." And that line, it broke something in Ricky. Because all his life, he wanted to matter. To be feared. Respected. Even famous. But what he saw in Jonah's eyes wasn't fear. It was disgust. Pity. Like Ricky wasn't even worth hating. So Ricky confessed. The arrest was quiet. The trial, a spectacle. Ricky sat in court, smug, thinking he'd get off easy with a deal. But Jonah had gathered everything, every robbery, every shot fired, every victim. A story unfolded in the courtroom of a man who thought chaos was power. And when the guilty verdict came, Ricky smirked, until the judge spoke. Life. No parole. No appeal. The smirk vanished. But here's where the story twists. Months later, a journalist visited Jonah. Wanted to write a piece. A story of justice, of closure. But when she asked Jonah if he felt peace, he didn't answer. Just stared out the window. You ever wonder, he said quietly, why Ricky picked that store? The journalist blinked. Wrong place, wrong time? Jonah shook his head. My father didn't work there. Not really. He volunteered. Once a week. I never told anyone. Why does that matter? Jonah looked her dead in the eye. Because Ricky didn't just pick that store. He asked for my father by name. And just like that, the room went cold. Because now, Jonah wasn't sure if it had been random at all. And if it wasn't, then Ricky had a reason. A name. A target. Jonah couldn't sleep. Not since the interview. The words kept echoing in his head, he asked for my father by name. It didn't add up. Ricky Timms was reckless, sure, but premeditation? That wasn't his style. He was a blunt instrument, not a scalpel. So why target Jonah's father? Why that store? Why that day? He started digging, pulling records the department had shelved. His father, Arthur Hale, had retired from a government job years ago. Everyone assumed it was civil service. Paperwork. Jonah knew otherwise. Buried in files, he found classified documents redacted to the bone, hinting at operations, testimonies, names protected under federal silence. And one name popped up over and over, Ricky Timms' uncle. Marcus Timms. A name Jonah hadn't heard in years. A ghost tied to a botched witness protection program his father had supervised. The truth hit like a gut punch. Ricky hadn't picked Arthur Hale by chance. This wasn't random violence. It was blood vengeance. A legacy of criminal ties going back decades. Marcus Timms had vanished under Jonah's father's watch, allegedly for turning informant against a drug syndicate. But he never resurfaced. Official story said Marcus ran. Ricky had grown up believing Jonah's father executed him. Whether true or not, that belief became a vendetta passed down like a family curse. Jonah stared at the files. His father had been a good man. But maybe not a clean one. Maybe justice was murkier than he'd ever imagined. The irony? He'd hunted Ricky like a vigilante for murdering a man who may have orchestrated a murder himself. He returned to the prison. Ricky was gaunt, paler, meaner. His eyes held a quiet triumph. You finally figured it out, Ricky whispered through the glass. Why didn't you say it? Jonah asked. Ricky smiled. Because if I had, I wouldn't be the villain. And you wouldn't be the hero. And you needed that, didn't you? Needed me to be the monster. Made it easier. Jonah's hand curled into a fist. So what now? Ricky leaned closer. Now you ask yourself if justice was ever justice. Or just revenge with paperwork. Jonah stood abruptly, bile rising in his throat. He walked out. But the truth clung to him like smoke. He thought the story was over. But 2 weeks later, another letter arrived at his precinct. No return address. Inside, another photo. This time, of Ricky. Sleeping in his cell. On the back, scrawled in a jagged hand, he wasn't the last. Just the first. Jonah's blood ran cold. Because now it was bigger. Ricky Timms wasn't a lone idiot with a gun. He was just a spark. And someone, somewhere, was holding the matchbox.